I want to ask you if the news of the day, you know how it is when any kind of Cardinal pitcher, they push him back or they rest him, and you're like, what does this mean? The Cardinals are going to hold Jack Flaherty back, as you reported, for a day as far as his first spring start. Instead of Saturday, it'll be Sunday. It does not seem like a big deal, but I want your interpretation because you know more than I do.
I mean, it's a deal, but it's not a big deal. It's just kind of another deal, another deal in the schedule. This is related to his bullpen being pushed back a day. So he wanted an extra day to recover after facing hitters on the back fields because he just was kind of feeling tight. Lower half, they described it. So, you're talking about like hips and legs. So not anything with the arm or shoulder. And then, so he wanted an extra day to kind of recover from that. Now, that's not unusual. It's usually not this time of spring when you see that, right?
Right.
Like, you see pitchers go through a lot of like the running and the training and the PFPs and things like that. And you and I have both seen it 100 times where they'll go out there and do those PFPs for a few days in those early weeks of spring, and they'll have a bullpen pushed back just so they're not risking anything with their legs or, they're not going out there pitching with tired legs, any of that stuff. So, this time of spring, it's a little less common, but it's part of that. So he's going to push back a day because they can. Puts him on Sunday. He's still targeted to throw just about as much, and he needs to start. I think they all recognize, he recognizes it too. He's got to get into games. There's that adrenaline surge that he's just not going to get elsewhere. And, if anything, he can harken back to last year and his rush from a rehab assignment back to the majors and how that went. Needs to get through that experience. And so I think, they better to wait, better to have him at full strength, but they do need to get him out there. It was his start being pushed back was not quite the level of, say, Adam Wainwright not being able really to engage his lower half to get the velocity up and to throw with like the assertiveness that he needs to. And he didn't have that today. And this is his last start for the Cardinals for what could be many weeks as he heads off to Team USA. So not exactly the send-off that he wanted from here. So he'll go off to Team USA, Bernie, and try to get that velocity revved up there while pitching for the national team.
Derrick Goold with us. I want to ask you how you think it's going in the early stages of all the rules changes. And I think there's been a lot of emphasis on the pitch clock, not only the way it might affect pitchers, but hitters as well. General thoughts on that from your early observations?
Yeah, I like it. I'm really conflicted about liking it because baseball's never had a clock on it. And we were just talking about Cooperstown. You go into Cooperstown, and in the back there in the writer's wing, there's Roger Angel's line about how, baseball doesn't have a clock, so you have a chance to stay forever young, or I think somewhere along those lines. And I was like, oh, buddy, have I got a story for you? We're all getting older now, and it's in 20-second increments. So enjoy. And so I feel a little bit off about it, but I think we're seeing how it's a hitter's clock. For some pitchers, it'll be an issue. The Cardinals have a couple guys. Obviously Giovanni Gallegos is the one that comes to mind. Ryan Helsley's the guy who's working. That's something to watch here from a Cardinals perspective is, does he get into a spot where, okay, he's quick enough, but then he's going to be in the ninth inning. And is he going to have a key ball called against him? And then Wilkin Rodriguez, who did well today, threw a lot of strikes. They gave up a home run on a breaking ball, but threw a lot of strikes. He's the Rule 5 pick. He, too, is a guy who is kind of working through the pitch clock. But I think they'll all get there. But we talk about the pitch clock is, that 20 seconds. But it's 8 for hitters.
I know.
It's quick. It's real quick for hitters. And you could see how, they take one kind of step back and they barely have enough time to get in if they stretch. And you think about the guys who take a step out, stretch. They're not even doing the Nomar Garcia par thing. They're just doing something that we've long considered. Wow, that guy's pretty quick. And the 8 seconds are up, and here we go. I think that's a real fascinating part about it as you get into later stages, stressful games, 8th, 9th inning at Wrigley Field. What does that look like? And I think 8 seconds is going to – I think I'm going to go out on a limb, Bernie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to suggest that the way they have it set up right now with the catcher and the batter is maybe going to flip by the end of spring training, so that it's the catcher who has to be ready first in a quicker amount of time, and that's ahead of the batter. Because you're going to hear some pushback from batters saying, why do I have to be ready and in the box and alert and able to swing when the catcher doesn't even have to be in his crouch yet?
I agree. It's the fair thing to do. Yep. That's really cool.
Yeah.
A great observation. And it's true. I co-sign on that one. Hey, I wanted to mention one more thing about the new rules. And to use that old phrase, your ears might have been burning yesterday, because I was praising you for pointing something out that I hadn't realized or had not thought enough about. When you have talked about the so-called banning of the defensive shifts, it's really been overstated, because, as you pointed out, there can still be a lot of movement. I mean, you can't have guys set up the way they're used to being set up. You still have to have two infielders on each side of second base, and they have to have their feet on the dirt. But you pointed out, man, you're going to see a lot of motion. You're going to see a Tommy Edman probably, who's fast anyway. Be able to just kind of do a sprint over to the right side of the infield to give the Cardinals 3 infielders over there. He can't set up there, but he can get there. So I'm going to shut up now and let you explain this, because you're right. We're assuming things about the so-called ban of the defensive shift. We're assuming things that aren't either A, are not really true, or B, will not have maybe as much impact as people assume.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one we saw today, where there was a ground ball in the game, and it was fielded as if on a shift right behind second base, and it was the fielder moving there. Just started on the right side, completely within the rules, nothing else, but just was shaded over right along the line, and then moved and was right there to make the play, just as if on a shift. We've seen some. Nolan Arenado got a ball through the infield today. Hit the ball hard, though, so it probably would have gone for a hit, even in the shift days. In Wainwright's first start, there was definitely a base hit that would not have been a base hit in a true kind of defensive overload shift. But that was also early on, and now we're seeing teams start to adjust, and they move. They'll put guys in motion, for lack of a better word. They'll do different things like that. Major League Baseball has told teams don't get cute, because they'll just rewrite the rules. So, there's a general sense you're not going to see a left fielder in shallow right field too often, unless a team really knows that, all right, we need everything we can to get an out here, and this guy's going to put it there, and it's worth the risk. But you're not going to see that. You are going to see that, but you're not going to see that a lot. You'll see some where they go with a 5-man infield, but you have to commit. But again, you can put that guy in motion so that he can. He starts the moment right on one side, and then by the end is on the other side, and you have the overload again. So I think that one. I think the defensive shifts are not going to. It's a cosmetic thing. It's an aesthetic thing. It's going to make baseball familiar when the pitch is delivered, but it's not going to stop teams from trying. I think the real fascinating new rule that we're going to see multiple teams do something creative with is the disengagement and the pickoffs. And if there are times where teams try to bait other teams into taking off and then back pick or throw them out. Cardinals are in a good spot with that, with a strong-armed catcher who tried to back pick today at second base, and he'll do it again.
That's right.
So I think that's a real interesting one. The Mets have been working on some stuff up in their camp where they're looking at, do you make the two throws over and say, go ahead, try, and then does it just foil up the running game in a different way? I think we're going to see some real interesting things with that.
I totally agree. I'm looking forward to that part of it. Derrick, I know you're busy, and I also have to – usually we will talk till the cows come home or whatever, but I got a guest coming up, but I know we've had a good 15, 16 minutes with you, so I'll take it and appreciate it, and then we'll talk again next week. So thank you very much.
All right, we can plot a trip to Cooperstown in the winter. All right, I know
we will.
Places we can eat. Yeah,
we will. Cooperstown dreaming, not California dreaming.
That's
all the
right.
all the leaves are brown on a winter's day, but it's Cooperstown.
That's right. That's right. It
so,
was great. It was good to see snow. So thanks.
Take care, buddy. Thank you so much. That's Derrick Goold. And, he talked about he mentioned the Mets, and I'm not going to get into a deep thing because, number one, I don't have time. And also, it was really, really be hard to explain fluently and economically. But the Mets are, in fact, working on some things. And this kind of raised an issue. It really is true. It's going to be Max Scherzer said, hey, it's going to be a cat and mouse game. And the pitchers are, with help from their analytics department, with help from the manager, loopholes in the rules, whatever, they're going to find ways to gain, to work around, let's say, the two pickoff limit. It's actually a combination of pickoffs and disengagements, but only two per batter. There are going to be ways, not only ways they're going to try to work around it, but there's going to be ways where they're going to even take more advantage of it by sort of fooling the hitters, tricking the hitters, setting traps for the hitters, where the hitter's like, well, he's not going to throw over now. He can't. There's all this gaming that's going to go on, and it's going to be interesting. And like I said, it's really, really difficult to explain. But I read a Substack piece by someone who's been tracking this and updated it. And it's not an easy read because some of it's confusing about what exactly we may see. But the point is that there's a lot of minds at work on this. So this is going to be one of the interesting things about the pickoff and the disengagement rule once the regular season starts. And we'll see what some teams are up to try to get an advantage. So that kind of stuff I like, because that could also lead to strategy and discussions on strategy.